There we go. All righty. So, hey everyone.
Hello.
Hey.
Welcome, welcome back to the Klamath Film Monthly member meeting. I'm Logan Baldwin. I kind of know everybody here just about. I am the executive director of Klamath Film. I've been here in Klamath for uh just over a year now, and I've been working with this organization for since February or so. So I'm gonna give a little rundown of the agenda here. I've got a handful of announcements and some housekeeping to do. We've got a job opportunity. We've got several openings for board members if anybody's interested in that. And I'm going to be pushing membership, even though I think everybody here is a member. So maybe I won't be pushing membership. I think everybody here is a member. But I'll go over it anyway for anybody who's watching the recording later. Yeah, so first thing on the board here is I got this email just this afternoon. There is a documentary team coming to Ashland for a shoot from December 7th through the 9th, and they're looking to hire a production assistant. The day rate's 150, and you must be available for all 3 days and have a valid driver's license pretty easily. Documentary experience is preferred, and if you're interested and available, let me know and I'll hand out an email address. Fantastic.
I'm a bit.
You want it?
Yeah,
Fantastic. Well, I'll take a picture of this real fast.
Yeah.
Bam. That one right up the top, right there. Bam. And it is in Ashland. And
I
it
have a
is
valid
for
driver's license for a reason.
yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
What did they say? What documentary they're doing?
No, I have no other information than that, unfortunately. But it sounds like fun.
It's a gamble.
It is, yeah. Well, I'll reach out and find out. This was just through Gary Kaut, who is he's like you guys know Cameras and Cocktails that's in Ashland and Medford. He's the guy that runs that, and he's involved with SOU over there at the film program. Very cool dude. Very cool dude.
Well, give us a report if the rest of us can't, or some of us can't make it. Be nice to hear how it goes for you.
Absolutely. Sounds great. All right. And then the other thing is we have a handful of people whose board membership is expiring for Klamath. For Klamath Film. I think we've got 9 out of 13 positions full. So what's that? 4? Great math. So if anybody's interested in being on the board and contributing to Klamath Film and helping make decisions, I know John showed an interest a couple of months ago in the business side of Klamath Film.
Just because I ask questions doesn't mean I want to get.
You seemed interested to me.
Well,
and I've got the perfect way for.
No, I'm until I'm done with my parents' estate. I just can't take on anything more until we're done.
Sure. It is only 1 or 2 extra meetings a month, so at least one. So it's not a huge commitment, and you'll get to have a say in things like the film festival and our other the Oscar shorts screening and things like that. So you'll be on the pulse. And then
19, don't look at me like that.
Well, we're looking for a more diverse group too, and that includes like high schoolers. Not you're 19, you're out of high school, but like young people too. We want voices from. Right now, we're board representation is leaning pretty heavily in one direction, as I can imagine everyone here can guess.
What's that? Geriatric? No, I'm just kidding.
You're way off. You're really not.
Like Congress.
But I mean, yeah, if you're younger, it's not a
Exactly.
bad thing to have on your resume.
Yeah.
I mean, like I'm always down to a full conversation or whatever, because it is kind of a want and a goal for me. I just don't know when.
Totally. Well, now is a perfect opportunity. Yeah, so that's something that's going on. I will be pushing that on social media a lot too, because we need to fill some seats there. And then the last thing I want to talk about before we kind of go around and introduce ourselves is membership perks. So, like I said before, everybody here I know is a member, right? But for $25 a year, you get discounts on tickets. You get our equipment checkout. So you guys have heard all of this, right? But we have an insane library of professional filmmaking equipment in a storage unit.
I've
Yes.
seen it. I've used it
It's
just the other
you
week.
have, yeah. You and like very small handful of others are the only ones that are taking advantage
Yeah,
of it,
it's
right?
it's underutilized.
It is absolutely and it's kind of a mess right now, right? But
just a little bit.
Yeah.
That can be fixed.
exactly. It's just because of the film festival, right? Because we had a ton of stuff
Yeah.
used during then, and now I threw it all back in the storage unit pretty haphazardly, right? But there's some great stuff in there. We've got GoPros, we've got Blackmagic pocket cinema cameras, we've got lighting equipment, we've got recording equipment, we've got everything you would possibly need, and then some. We got a drone recently, so yeah.
Yeah.
So anybody,
Trying to drone.
I have it written down.
Do we have anybody who can pilot it?
I can go up and down.
Ah.
I
I
moved too far away. I'm afraid.
totally.
Do we have to prove our skills?
Yeah, there's like a little training course.
Exactly. Oh, that would be fun though, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Well, I just remember always Kurt's words in my ears, like, you can't fly like anything even off the ground without a license around this area, especially because of Kingsley Field and the jet stuff. It's just,
That's right.
so it's a little, to me, it's a little ridiculous. I'm like, look, if it goes beyond the housetops, I get it, but below them, come on. But whatever.
No, they can just shut it off in mid-flight.
Totally. Send out an EMP and yeah, we've got that, and then we've also the production opportunities, right? So if you're a member, you will know first when we have job opportunities in film around here. Not near as many in Klamath Falls as there is in Medford and Ashland, right? But like, you come to these meetings, you sign up to be a member, you're the first to know. So it's it's how I got working on the Bruce Campbell project. It's literally exactly how I did it. So
Everyone's experience.
exactly. So with that, that's really all I have here. I think we can go ahead and get started with some introductions. And since we're filling a little bit of time, I want to throw in a little bit of what have you been watching? So I'll start here. My name is Logan. I am the executive director of Klamath Film. I've been here for a year. I moved here from Memphis wife graduated law school and we moved out here and she became the law clerk. Big for reasons that we've already talked about. There's a huge deficiency and there's a lack of legal professionals out here, and we didn't have kids and we wanted to do something crazy. And here I am doing something crazy as we speak. So yeah, I have an associate's in video production, and I worked as a product photographer for TJ Maxx and Marshalls while I was in Memphis for 3 years. And now I'm out here and I'm doing this. And I got a really cool opportunity this summer where I worked on as a production assistant on legendary horror icon Bruce Campbell's newest project. And so that was hugely fun. That was the biggest, craziest, most fun experience of my life. And I got that through doing this. So stick with me here and you'll get things like that, right? So yeah, that's me. And now I'm running this. Watching. You know what we've been watching is
Logan, we keep having the audio kind of cutting in and out a little bit.
oh, no.
Maybe put your mic in a stand if it helps.
This
Keep
one
it stable.
busted. Maybe I
Okay.
think I was holding it by the
Yeah, you can. Do you want mine?
no,
Share?
this was
Sharon is caring, Logan.
I think it's because I was holding it by the plug there, and I probably shouldn't have been doing that. Is this any better since I've been talking?
Yeah, it
Cool,
seems to
great.
be.
Fantastic. Well, I won't hold it like that anymore. So anyway, what I have been watching is The Detroiters on Netflix. It's Tim Robinson's, not his sketch comedy, but his sitcom It's 22 minutes. It's about an ad agency in Detroit, and it is very funny. And I like it personally a lot better than I Think You Should Leave, which is a sketch show on Netflix. Maybe it's just because it's not a sketch show. It is more it's narrative, you know, and I really, really loved it. We there's 2 seasons of it on there. It's maybe 20 episodes, and we knocked it out in a weekend. So
Nice.
that's what I've been watching recently. Yeah. It's very fun. I love all of the characters. It's one of those shows that is like a sitcom that has a friendship at the core, you know, like those iconic friendships like you know, Troy and Abed or right or Sean and Gus, or you know, think of 100 more that I can't right now. Yeah, and so I really enjoyed that. To the right of the dealer, we have.
Oh, my name is Jude Garlitz. Some of you guys probably know me. Very ambitious 19-year-old interested in making movies and taking photos and mostly stop motion, to be honest. Fun fact, just I want to say 3 or so weeks ago, I finally registered myself as an LLC, J Studios Film and Design LLC. It was a big goal of mine, big work, and I'm just going to try to keep the business going and get it growing as much as possible. As far as for what I've been watching recently, probably to no one's surprise, is Arcane Season 2. I've been absolutely obsessed with the show. As far as modern cinema goes, it's absolutely up there, just not even compared to a lot of the stuff that we've been getting these days, especially in terms of animation.
Yeah, I was just thinking that's the one on Netflix, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like I think I see it like it's like one of the next things I was gonna watch, but yeah, it looks interesting.
It is very heartbreaking as well. I've probably cried 2 or 3 times while watching it, so just a fair warning.
Great. And then I forgot there's one more thing that I want to add on to after what have you been watching? Is there any project that you want to promote or that you might need help with? And that goes for everybody around, you know, filmmaking project, you know, if you need I know Anthony's gonna have a lot to say here, but if you were you know, if you know, you got it, you get the idea.
Yeah, I mean, like, as I mentioned, I just started J Studios Film and Design LLC. So that's kind of my big project. I'm just trying to get my name out there and get commissions out for video editing and photography to start with. I will be looking for some voice actors here soon because I have a very large stop motion series that I'm going to start working on. It's a sci-fi mystery, and I can only voice so many characters, so I'm going to need some voices for that.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, when you get all that lined up, submit a casting and crew sheet over to Klamath Film, and we'll boost it out into the world.
Yeah,
That's
certainly.
what we're here for.
I'll bust out my Tourette's for you.
All righty. Anthony. Hey, what's up, man? How are you?
I've been blessed. My name is Anthony Lee Thornton. I have a film production here in Klamath Falls on Main Street. It's a blessing to be here in Klamath. Nice backdrop for everything. Currently working on a houseless documentary called Stability First, where we're actually allowing the houseless to speak and give their outtake and outlook on what's happening in their communities. And solutions to get them out of this is not too difficult. It's just people rather shove a dollar at them to shut them up to get their next dope than to actually care to help them get off the street. So we're trying to portray that. And we're also interviewing the government resources in which they have like DHS or class or anything like that here locally to discover what that link is that's missing in between the services that are available and what the people on the streets are not being able to access. So we're trying to fill that hole. And the purpose of this documentary is I don't really care too much about public, but what I would like to see is the government to sit on their ass and actually watch this with their eyes on the screen, their ears open, and hear what the people have to say, not some person in an office pulling strings and telling people what they can and can't do. And the reason I decided to do this is over at Department of Human Services, I've noticed that the first thing they do when a homeless walks in is like, okay, we'll give you some food stamps if you go to work at McDonald's. Well, I'm not sure if you want to eat that cheeseburger that the guy just wiped his ass with his hand and hasn't had a shower in 2 weeks. So I think that we need to worry about stability first, and there goes the name of the film. And the reason is stability provides the opportunity for hygiene, you know, going through mental health all the processes of personal health to where you eventually get them employment. We're basically turning things upside down. Right now, the government wants employment first, and I don't feel that that's common sense. So we're going to try to flip that around on them.
That's
Way
great.
100%.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not
awesome.
easy to get a job now.
No, yeah,
If you don't have internet access.
for sure. Or an ID.
Or an address or
ID.
anything.
The address is
Yeah.
huge. That's one of the number
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm up to. Looking for any homeless actor who wants to answer my 8 questions. And also anybody in government that would like to speak. Anybody who would like to reach out, we're down to interview. And anyone who denies the interview will be blasted.
There you go. There you go. Perfect. All righty. Next up, introductions.
I'm Jesse Fleur. I have very little to do with film. I'm just learning. I work in tech. We do all kinds of random stuff. We've got 400 acres on Stucco Mountain. If anyone needs
I got a tiny house.
some kind of setting,
Can I just go hiking sometime?
yeah, people
it's
go hiking up
gorgeous
there all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're just interested in like kind of getting into film. I have a few projects that I would like to make or whatever. So just trying to learn on how to do that. I haven't really been watching anything lately. I just have been working a lot.
I feel it.
Yeah, I've got a project that I'm very passionate about making, and then another project that's like a first project that I think is stupid, but would be kind of fun just to make to get the experience for. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Well, that's usually how it goes, right? Your first project is always the stupid one, and it ends up really, really bad. But you know what? Your second one
We know
is
about
also
that.
really bad, but slightly less, and then so on and so on and so on.
Well,
right?
I think it's, sometimes you get an idea that you want to do, but you might have to do some things before it to kind of get to the point where you feel able to do it. So don't feel
reality.
bad about having practice sessions, things to get you to where you're going.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm finding with my project too, is that's what it's going to take. But yeah,
Absolutely.
whatever it takes to get your feet wet,
Start small and build up. They say the best camera is the one in your hand, right? So, or in this case, in your pocket. Everybody's got a camera,
Yeah, right.
so you could just start doing anything at any time.
I forgot to mention my
Yeah.
watching.
Oh yeah, let's hear it. Yeah.
Memory is that short from the the watching is me and John went to the $5 matinee and saw Saturday Night, which was really dope to see behind the scenes. And it was honestly hilarious the entire time. Just to like put your mind in that mindset of like what they were going through to create that Saturday Night was just amazing. And I saw Jude post on Instagram about Arcane. So how do you say it?
Arcane.
Arcane. So I went down that rabbit hole and I'm on season 1, episode 2 because I fall asleep every night.
I'm so
before
proud
it
of you. I'm so proud of you.
Very
That's all I'm up to.
Saturday Night. When did you all go see that? And is it still in theaters? Because I want to see it.
I'm actually not sure if it's still in theaters, but we saw it here at Pelican. We go on Tuesdays.
Totally.
It's $5.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm sure it'll still be in theaters for at least another week.
I would hope so.
I would highly suggest that film to not just like Saturday Night Live fans, but if you're planning to be in film production in any way, shape, or form, go watch what that hot seat looks like from like a completely different view from the outside. And you would just be like, hell no, I'm not doing this for a career, and back out.
Absolutely.
I've heard stories on podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
It's fucking nightmare.
And
Yes.
we were blessed here at Klamath Falls. I think it was like last year. We had a speaker come who was actually the prop designer,
Mm.
and he was sharing with us here at the table that literally within 24 hours of Saturday night going down, you already had to be prepared for next Saturday because everybody had to do rehearsals and try-ons and
Wow.
the costumes. So it was like a very like high energy place.
Yeah. From the stories that I've heard, it doesn't sound like it interests me. Yeah. It's not something that I really
Yeah.
do.
That's
And
hard.
and then have to do a lot of cocaine to be able to. Right. So
Savage environment.
absolutely. I really do want that. So I'm glad
It's
it's
really good.
what's up, man? All righty.
I'm Molly, Fleur, I'm his wife.
He's your husband.
Sometimes, yeah, he's my husband.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been married for like,
Oh,
20 years. I don't know. We've been together a long time. I'm old.
what year is it?
24 currently so
We
far.
didn't know.
I can't
So
math
far.
right now.
Anyway, yeah, I guess what I've been watching, I have 2 kids, so I've been just kind of watching. I guess I don't know, just whatever they've been watching. We watch Holes, and I've been kind of showing them like the older movies, like The Goonies and that kind
Raisin
of stuff. Yep, exactly. We did what's the movie? Back to the Future. They
Yeah.
loved that. They
Yeah.
loved that. So yeah, we've been kind of watching the oldies and.
Yeah.
I can rap all the kids songs.
I know, I was gonna have them watch Matrix and then I rewatched it. I was like, oh yeah, that's not appropriate. So, but excellent movie. So then I had to watch all the Matrix movies.
Of
So,
course.
but yeah, I haven't made any films or anything like that, but
We have
Jesse,
a YouTube channel.
that's true. We do have a YouTube channel.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we do have a YouTube channel because we have the 400 acres and we lived in a yurt for 9 months and
Cool.
did
I know.
videos. Okay, did videos and did some pretty cool YouTube stuff for that. So, and building a cabin and living off grid and that kind of stuff with 2
Very
small
cool.
children and just doing the crazy
Yeah.
stuff.
What's that like on YouTube?
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of, yeah. He does some like video editing and that kind of stuff. And then we hired a guy to do a video and he took like a cool like drone video of our property and stuff. It was pretty cool.
Very cool.
So yeah, it was pretty exciting.
Would you want to share that that YouTube link or the channel name, or is that just for y'all?
Logan, stop touching the bottom part of your
Aegis
mic.
Mountain.
Yeah, he just-
AEGIS.
AGIS.
AEGIS.
Oh.
Aegis is like a Greek shield.
Mhm.
So that's
What's the
our,
website though?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
Can you send us that?
Sure. Yeah. Would you like
Go
that?
ahead.
Alright,
It's-
I
We
can do
haven't
that.
done anything within like a year or so.
We kind of got snowed off the mountain and it was
Yeah, we got
pretty,
snowed off the mountain and so then we bought a house in town.
and now
You
we're
building
working
it?
on that.
Stuckel.
Yeah, we own 400 acres up there.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, we were living off grid for 9 months.
Yeah, Stuckel Mountain.
Building a cabin and homeschooling our kids and then,
87?
yeah,
If
it's
you
kind of
look
crazy.
out the window, like right there, you would see it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty gorgeous.
It's
yeah.
the one with like the kind of stair steppy zigzag.
Oh, yeah, and slide in front.
Mhm.
Maybe.
It's pretty historic.
Maybe, yeah.
I know it's.
Any water leaks or?
There's a couple, there's like seasonal reservoirs, like 3 of them on there, on our
really
property, and then a
beautiful.
couple,
Yeah.
another one up above, a little higher up. We built a little cabin up there. It's powered by solar. We got Starlink and all that kind of stuff up there, so. I think it's gone down because the snow has kind of been too cold for the batteries to recharge.
Right,
But I
yeah.
have on my phone, I can just log in and check the cameras.
at it,
and
yeah.
stuff, yeah, but
And we just go up there and trek around and we can spend the
Yeah.
night and he can work from up there because he has Starlink and everything.
yeah,
So, but we have a house in town now with like an
Yeah.
acre and have our greenhouse and stuff down there. So we're kind of, I don't know.
trying to
Here and
figure out
there.
the off-grid stuff.
Yeah.
It's a lot more work than it seems like it should be.
Totally. Larry, you're always perfectly in time for introductions. Would you like to introduce yourself?
And I'm Larry Marinelli, and yesterday I was off grid for 6 hours because the power went out.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm building a house too out by Lake of the Woods.
Nice. Wow.
Nice.
So,
Totally. I bet y'all were hit pretty hard over there, huh?
oh man, it's covered in snow now, so we're not doing anything.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
but I almost done with the framing, halfway done with framing. And then we got hit with the snow.
Cool.
So we're down for a couple of weeks, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
On OIT's power grid from the geothermal. So
Oh.
we're gonna launch on power out.
Oh,
So weird. They,
where's that at?
so OIT.
Oh, yeah, all right.
Very cool.
Oh,
That's cool.
They'll let you go in and see.
And Larry, we got two more questions for you tacked on to introductions. One, are there any projects that you want to promote or you need help with? The answer can be no, and that's fine.
I've
Aside from
been
building.
auditioning still.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Anything fun? Heard anything?
the auditions are always fun.
Yeah.
but I haven't.
Do you like auditioning? Because
Oh,
I know
yeah.
a lot of people hate it.
I think I'm a better actor than auditioner.
Sure.
I
Sure.
still have fun doing it.
Totally. Yeah.
Make the best of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then last question is, what have you been watching recently?
Well, I've been watching a lot of the SAG movies because I'm in the nominating committee.
Right. Yeah.
So what's this? Dark Horses.
Sorry, what was it?
I think it's called Dark Horses.
Dark Horses.
It's
Okay.
from shot in England.
Yeah.
And Deputy, that's an older series. I've been watching that. I'm getting ready to.
Is it dark horses or slow horses?
Slow Horses? Cool.
Yeah.
Horses.
Yeah, it's got our guy in there.
Gary Oldman.
Yep.
There we go.
Yeah. Yeah. So I
Very
just
cool.
started watching that one last night.
Yeah.
And the Jackal, I'm going to start watching that right after I finish
think I know that
Slow
one.
Horses.
Yeah. Cool. Cool. Very
So
cool.
there's a ton. I'm watching something different every week.
That sounds like a lot of fun, to be honest with you. Well, I mean, I did a lot of that for KIF too, though.
Yeah.
So
Oh, and I watched Bad Monkey.
yeah,
I watched the whole series of that.
I haven't heard of that one either.
It's on Apple.
Cool. That's the reason. I don't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Cool.
So
Cool.
for the next month and a half, I get all these free stations:
Very cool.
Hulu, Apple,
Yeah.
Peacock, everything.
Very, very cool.
So that's what I've been doing.
I'm jealous. That sounds awesome. This sounds like a whole lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then finally, we've got John over here. John, would you like to introduce yourself? Talk about any projects you'd like to promote or ask help for? And then, what have you been watching?
Okay, well, I'm always hoping to get on with my stupid cyberpunk project, but it's just got to wait till the state is done. So in the meantime, I watch things, try to learn things. I just got kind of done watching Altered Carbon again because it's a dystopian future concept. So it's a lot like cyberpunk. I just find it so funny how most cyberpunk movies, they never mention the word cyberpunk, Blade Runner,
Like zombie movies.
or Dune,
Yeah.
or stuff like that. I mean, you can kind of, Dune is more just straight up sci-fi, but you get the idea. So I've been watching, I'm just going to put it into the chat a little bit here, just so I guess there's a record of it. Great. I put it in the chat. Now I can't see it. Okay, there we go. When you're talking about the animation stuff, there's that Scavenger's Reign. Have you watched that one?
It's so good. It's so good.
It's like, yeah, I mean, that's a trip. All right.
Let's hear about it. Tell us all about it.
Well, it's like these people that kind of crash land on a planet. They're doing cargo runs or whatever, but there's a few groups that maybe end up on this planet, but this planet has just got a whack bio environment going on. Just weird stuff happening and all kinds of creatures. I mean, just the animation for just all the crazy things come out of the creators' minds is something to see, and kind of where they go with it. So, here they're trying to survive this place, but it's like nothing. I don't know. It's hard for me to give you an idea, but it's a very dangerous planet in many ways. So they're just trying to survive it. It's just the fact that they're dealing with some things as if it's kind of nonchalant. I'm like, yeah, one misstep there, you're dead. But okay, whatever. It's just another day on the ranch for you guys, I guess, that are always hopping planets, crashing on planets. I don't know. So it's just interesting to see. But they've had a lot of fun with that, so I recommend that. Of course, I was watching the Love, Death, and Robots, which is a bunch of shorts. As far as animation goes, pretty amazing what they're doing there, with just 10 or 20 minutes. And also the Oats Studios. It's again shorts, but interesting stuff. But it's a little more on the live action stuff. I think there was Sigourney Weaver in the first one. I was like, really? All right. I also kind of went back and looked at Channel Zero Butcher's Block. I watched that before, but it's a little more on the horror side, but it's storytelling, and of course it's got Rutger Hauer in it, so how can I pass that up? So, rest in peace, our dear friend. And again, Altered Carbon, I wouldn't say it's really, there's some things I don't like about it. So I do and I don't. I don't know if it's the pacing or whatever it is, but I did notice there's some audio issues. I don't know if that's Netflix or what happened. I don't know what happened. I mean, there's a few times you're like, what's going on with the audio there? But so it's just something to remember how important audio is, because if it gets jacked, it throws you off. And well, there's one, I don't know. I did not mean that as a dig, Logan.
It was just funny.
You guys laughed, then I got it. All right. Anyways, I don't know if you ever heard of this old TV series. It's kind of a cyberpunk dystopian thing. It's called Charlie Jade. Have any of you watched this?
No.
It's hard to find. Of course, I found it. That's why I put it the internet. I won't say where I found it, but I found it.
Totally legally.
Yeah, I'll just say.
Website .ru.
Well, yeah, it might have been something that's a shared files network of some sort. I don't know, but I was just glad to get it, just because it is hard to find. I think they made it I think it was in South Africa. So I mean, they're driving on the other side of the wheel, on the right side. So I don't know I can't remember if it's Australia or South Africa, but I think it's a South African production. So yeah, it's kind of hard to find, but it's like 19 episodes or something. But it's kind of they got some interesting themes there, but it is a little bit older. But yet, it's kind of like maybe like low budget older, but yet they're kind of doing pretty good. So it's kind of inspiring, if nothing else.
Very good. Very good.
I've been watching reaction videos to the good old movies like Blade Runner 2049, Aliens. The one thing that was I did notice one thing is like a lot of people when they first watch Blade Runner, I was like, they keep thinking they're robots, not like human, bioengineered humans. And I was just like, why do they keep getting this wrong? And then when you look at the beginning scroll of the text in the beginning part of the movie, it says the robots have been, robot design has entered the Nexus 6 phase. So that's why they think that. And then I looked at Dune 2049, and then they didn't say robots. They said bioengineered, human. I'm like, yeah, see, if you'd say that to the others, I think that would have helped a lot of people to realize, because a lot of people think like, do they have blood? Are they, they think it's like some enhanced data or something, from Star Trek, but it's not. And I think that kind of throws them off to not thinking that they're really human, and it doesn't quite give them. It takes them a while to catch up that we're dealing with like real people here, we're design people instead of robots, which let's be honest, we don't really have that emotional connection to those things because we know they're not living. Totally. But anyways, I digress.
You should. It's fun to point those things out. My wife sometimes hates it when I call out things in movies and I criticize or I talk about them like that, and especially if it's something she's enjoying, right? And I'm probably enjoying it too, is the thing. But like you can always learn something from what even a classic like Blade Runner, right? Maybe it needs to be a little bit more clear in its opening crawl or something like that.
Well, yeah, I was just like that one little not saying that threw everybody off. Mm-hmm. because I was like, it didn't really catch on to it after I had to watch a number, and I'm like, why are they all thinking this? What's wrong with them? Well, that's why, yeah. So
Well, the
I
words
guess
weren't
that
really
they're
invented, right? When
well, I
Rover
mean
came
the
out,
lesson.
it
Well, I
wasn't
mean the
like
lesson to
androids and
Right, yeah.
like it was one of the
Bioengineered,
first
yeah.
sci-fi, so it didn't really have
right.
a word for androids or,
Well, that they did. I mean, it was based on Philip K. Dick's book called what? Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
But an
So
android is a type of
yeah,
robot.
but we think of androids as Data from Star Trek, and that's the difference. Yeah, so
Sure.
maybe we didn't quite have bioengineered human or
Hmm.
bioengineered organism. I don't know what you want to call it,
Cyborg.
but cyborg. Well, cyborg, you usually think of being hardware mixed with with flesh,
Yeah,
like
Yeah.
Terminator or something.
sure.
But
Ship of this,
but
yes.
but
How
but
many parts do you have to remove to make it not a human?
well, yeah.
Mm,
But I mean, to me, it's like designer babies. That's kind of like what we're talking about here. But super like, well, I would say super soldier type designer babies. We think, we've heard of the military always wants to make their super soldiers, right? Well, I mean, that's bioengineered human, really.
But the replicants were, I mean, not to really get in here, but like the
Yeah, it's all
replicants,
right. It's all right.
they had robotic parts, right? Like
No, no,
replicants did.
no,
Oh, okay.
no. There's
I mean,
no.
but that was that whole
they're,
like look into their eye and you could see. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm,
serial numbers.
again, when you look at Blade Runner 2049, what did they say?
Well, and
Bioengineered
that's
human. So it
yeah.
is. I mean, there's no. That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. It's not. They're not being clear about. Well, think. And I thought about it, and I was like, well, what really does happen? Let's say you're building robots. What's going to be the ultimate thing you're going to be able to do?
Sex robot.
I mean, you want to build a slave. I mean, you want to build something that is that you're going to get tired of building it mechanically with nuts and bolts. You're eventually going to want to move over into well, let's make it more organic, and then let's make it all organic. I mean, it's just the natural progression of what happens because sex robots, right? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, it's like everybody goes there, so it's like you can't avoid it.
Totally. Well,
Because it's human nature. What can you
Huh?
do?
totally. Well, John, I hate to cut you off there
No,
because
no, go ahead.
that's exactly what we want to do here. But I feel like we would be burying the lead if we didn't go ahead and introduce our featured guest, Luke Zwanziger. Thank you for joining us. We know Luke because he was in everybody here probably saw at least one of his 2 entries into KIF this year. And that would be Vines that you can see that would have been on one of the last ones that we showed on Sunday evening.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
I love it. I love it so
Mhm.
much. And that one has everybody here seen it? That was great. That was well, Luke, why don't you introduce yourself instead of me introducing you?
I'm all for an intro, but yeah, I'll introduce myself. Hey everyone,
How's it
I'm
going?
good. I'm Luke Zwanziger, filmmaker, writer, director, based here in Portland, Oregon. Yeah, I've been making films since, I was a teenager, just running around with a camera. At this point, I say I've made a filmmaker's dozen, which is, around a dozen, including like sketch comedy and stuff. I've dabbled in a lot of comedy. I worked at a comedy theater for many years before the pandemic. So still love comedy. Really found a voice in horror as a horror filmmaker, and that's where I've been living for the past probably 5 years as my primary genre of things that I enjoy making. But I also love comedy. I can get on my soapbox about horror and comedy and how they are a razor's edge apart at some point tonight, if you all want to hear about that. But yeah, kind of never went to school for film. School of YouTube a little bit. Grew up in rural Eastern Oregon, out in Enterprise, Joseph, in the Wallowa Mountains. So not a big film town, not a big film scene. But I just slowly bought film gear and taught myself how to use it, and then I taught my friends how to use it, and we made stuff. And that's really how I got my start doing filmmaking. So like DIY stuff, like I made lights out of dish pans and halogen bulbs that I bought bulk at the grocery store. Like cut my teeth doing that DIY approach of filmmaking. Yeah, I've so at this point, I say I've been working in film for probably 15 years at this point, actively pursuing filmmaking as a career. And some years that's very lean, and I have my survival jobs that make it work. I have my support networks that make it work. Not getting rich doing it, but I'm really enjoying making art doing it, and making stories that impact people, and also just having fun and creating entertainment as well, and like walking that knife's edge of like entertainment and impact, and like we examined, we were talking before some of you all showed up, we were talking like D&D, and like I'm a storyteller at heart. And I think that's why a lot of us enjoy film as a collaborative storytelling media, that we both can present and interact with it both as creators as well as consumers, right? There are mirrors that we hold up and reflect um, for ourselves, like who are we as human beings, who are we as individuals, and that's why we engage in these stories. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I can dig into each and every stage of that as the night goes on, but I want to give it floor back to Logan. There's my little blurb at the top.
There we go. Yeah. It's from here, it's totally an open conversation. So anybody can ask any questions. I have a handful of questions to fill the time, but since you already brought it up, I do have a question about D&D. And I just because that has been I've been really obsessed with it for like 2 years now. First of all, how long have you been playing? And how long have you been DMing? Two separate questions.
I've been playing for about 3 years and DMing for two. Yeah, and then with the small caveat of like I've been doing improv comedy for 20 years, and and writing for that long too. And so in the writing medium, like D&D was like, oh, and I love board games too. I've been playing. I have a whole room dedicated to board games. So like I love the rules of board games, the collaborative storytelling of like tabletop role-playing game, whether that's D&D or the thousand other systems that are out there. And then improv, where we're coming together, we don't have a script, and we're gonna have fun and explore some character, right? So yeah, that's the medium long answer of I've been doing D&D for three years. Pandemic started online. That's how I started playing with friends. And now I have two in-person games that I play regularly, and then I have my online game that I still do. And then I do games on Start Playing for strangers now. I run games for strangers, folks who are just like, hey, I want to play, but none of my friends can get together on a Wednesday night. I'll run a game for you. So yeah, I do that occasionally as well.
Very cool. So what are some creative skills that sort of help? Okay, how about this? How does D&D help you become a better writer and director?
Yeah.
I'm thinking about transfer of skills, and also both ways, how does being a writer and a director help you in Dungeons and Dragons? Because they go hand in hand, sort of.
Yeah. And like it's yeah, it's elements and aspects of like improv, and like your home game is fun. You have all your inside jokes and stuff, and like, you know, you also need to recognize like there's like when you're at a table, this give and take between the people at the table. When you're writing a script, you're having this give and take, between all of the characters, making sure like who has the screen time, who has the time. And then as the DM, as you're running a game, like there's sessions where like this character today is their story, and like you know next week it's going to be someone else's story, right? But just really kind of identifying protagonists. And the thing about for a D&D table that is different than a screenplay is, right, when you come to a movie, we want to identify with someone. When we're playing D&D, we want to share that space a little bit more, right? We don't want it to be someone like one player, it's their story and we're all there supporting it. Like that's not as much fun to play, right? It's you know, it's fun to watch one person. Like if there's too many characters, people get distracted in a movie. Like, I don't know who was that about, right? And like you want to have a protagonist with a goal, a strong goal, something to overcome and something to reach for, whether or not they succeed or fail at the end of it, right? But that's one player or one person. For D&D, you want to you want to make sure we're sharing that space way more than you do for a screenplay. You can share that space with an ensemble cast, which happens more in television shows, but even so, you generally want to have one person who's driving that narrative. Um, a lot of like the shows that I can think of that are ensemble casts, you still have one person driving that narrative. Like Parks and Recreation, Leslie Knope is driving that show. Like it's an ensemble cast, they all have things they want and desire, but Leslie Knope is the star of that show. Fringe, you've got Agent at the Carter, like they all have their side stories, but at the core of it, you want to know about the main agent Olivia and her story. So, and that's where writing for screen and playing D&D differs because we want to be creating that space for folks.
Totally, totally. Does anybody have any questions about that before? Yeah, let's go open it up.
Okay, you said that you started online and then you went to in person. What's your hot take? Do you like in person or online better?
I like both. I really do like in person a lot. Like there is a camaraderie that happens at the table. I enjoy playing online. The tools, I think learning D&D honestly is a little easier online. Because like you have a lot of tools at your disposal that can like click to roll on all of these like different platforms and stuff like that, where like if you're rolling physically, and you can do that at a table in person too, you can be using digital tools. But there is just something nice. And also I was playing as a new parent. We started playing when my kid was a month old. So there's something nice about being like, okay, we're in combat. It's not my turn. I'm gonna go change the diaper. I'm gonna go get a bottle. And so there is something more relaxed. Whereas like if we're all at a table, it's a lot harder if everyone's getting up and down. That I think online is a little more forgiving. So like, what's your lifestyle? Like, how do you interact and what do you need? And I think like people like to say one is better than the other. I think it's like what's meeting your needs, right? And some people are like, I don't get that connection, I don't get that camaraderie when it's screen to screen. And like, yeah, it is easier to like be like nudging people and having side jokes when you're at a table or whatever. And like, having a beer together, your drink of choice, and having snacks and taking breaks and be like, wow, that was intense. All right, we're back at the table. Is nice. But I think both have their pros and cons. I don't know.
That's interesting that it usually goes the opposite way. You have a baby and then your D&D group falls apart.
Yeah.
But you have a baby and then you started a new one. So
Yeah.
I think I've noticed with men is like right around the time they're gonna have their first kid, they have to pick up another hobby.
That's right.
I've seen that many times. I've done it myself.
This was my wife's group. Like she's like, oh, me and my college friends are playing. Do you want to play? And I was like, sure.
Cool. Very fun.
So yeah. It's a fun shared hobby.
Unless there are any other questions about Dungeons and Dragons, I will move on. That was just the one thing that I made sure I wanted to ask about tonight. But we've still got over an hour to talk about movies and things that are relevant.
We can go.
So I want to ask you about, you said you had a background in improv comedy. Would you tell us a little bit about that? I have something down here. It says you've directed over 700 multicam comedy shows. Tell us all about it.
Yeah. So yeah, I got into improv comedy, in college. Long story short, friend auditioned, come along. They're like, you can't watch auditions. That's weird. You just audition. And I auditioned and got in, and my friend did not. Yeah. So that was kind of like my first foray into it. Took a long path to it. Stepped away from it for couple years. But yeah, I really enjoy like improv comedy, similar to like Whose Line Is It Anyways? That's short form improv comedy. I have a love for long form improv comedy in which you are doing basically improvised one act plays in which you have a variety of characters that, like, depending on how you're doing your show, weave together a loose narrative of like disparate stories that come together at the end. So yeah, we get a suggestion, and like it's not like someone calling it, it's we're doing a improvised one act play, and there's a variety of ways to do that. But I really enjoy it it's writing on your feet. Um, and I think it's a really great way, one, as a, if you ever want to direct, to like get on your feet and, act, right? Like know what you're asking of your actors. And I'm not saying you have to get on stage and do improv shows, but an improv class is helpful for that, right? Or go do a theater thing, or go get on screen for, a short film. Um, know what you're asking your actors to do, even if it's something that you're not like confident in. Being able to put yourself in every single role, as a director, get your hands on a boom mic, get your hands on a camera, pull focus, load a clapperboard, help set up a light. Know what those roles are, because it will serve you so much as a director. But I digress. In improv comedy, like, you are writing on your feet. And so like understanding tension release of like how we're creating like this give and take, listening to each other. I think improv is a great exercise. People are like, oh, I'm not fast, I'm not funny. And I tell people improv is not being about being fast. It's not about being funny. The human condition is inherently funny. All that I'm asking you to do is interact and engage like a human being, and you will find something funny. And then just we'll learn how to chase that. But like, you're not coming at this to tell a joke. You're coming at this to be a human being in a variety of different situations. So, like, I can ask you to be like, hey, how's that cake coming today? And let's just interact. Now you're a baker. Now you're a mom making a cake. Now you're a dad making a cake for a birthday party, like whatever it is. And then we walk backwards into that and discover it. And doing that helps me understand character, because the more I do that, I'm like, oh, that was boring. Why was that boring? And like, when I come to a script on the page, like, why is my writing is, I'm like, all right, now I'm just improvising with myself on the page. That's what writing is. You're trying to put on all of these different characters' hats, trying to understand all their motivations, and then hitting them against each other, giving them goals, motivations, that will like interact with each other. And comedy is about, building tension. I coach improv comedy, and I was coaching someone this week, and like, someone told them, they're like, hey, like, could you just be a little more vulnerable? And they're like, yeah, okay. And I'm like, great. I'm glad we're like agreeing. As a comedian, I want you to like avoid being vulnerable. Like, now it's just going to be really funny if someone, like, now we're just going to set you up to be vulnerable and be like, I can't let you in on that. See, I mean, like, it's like, it's so much more fun than like have this goal of them like fighting against it until they finally give. We're building tension, and we laugh as that happens, right? But asking someone to be vulnerable, part of the human condition. That was just them in a scene being like, hey, can you please be vulnerable with me? And I was like, aha, we have found a comedic game we can play. And so yeah, just doing this hones me as a screenwriter, as a director, and as well as being able to work with actors, of being like, how do I tap into these emotions? How can I ask other actors to tap into the emotions on stage? And it gets me out, like, screenwriting. You're sitting there thinking, thinking, thinking. And improv is nice to be like, hey, guess what? This won't matter in 5 minutes. Like, we're being here, that we're not putting this thing on 5 times, for the next 3 weeks. It's like, we're having fun, and like, you kind of get rid of that, like, that judgmental brain that's running in your head. So yeah, I did improv, studied in LA for a while, studied with a bunch of people from across the states. And when I moved to Portland, in 2016, I was like, I'm moving here. Well, primarily my wife was the girlfriend, now wife, was living here. And I was like, well, I guess it's LA or Portland. She lives in Portland, so I guess I'll move to Portland. Now happily married, with a kid. But I was like, all right, I'm doing film, but I'm doing comedy. Like, I miss doing improv comedy in a larger city. And comedy theater here in Portland, Oregon got a like large $200,000 grant, and they installed a multicam live switch system. So four robotic cameras, kind of like there's a TriCaster, stuff that they use to film Emmys and the Oscars, right? Where they're just switching between a bunch of different cameras. And so I was hired on as the director of video production there, switching between four multicam cameras using a robotic controlled camera. Usually you have like people manning each of those cameras, and I was doing it all myself. One, it's a nonprofit. Um, and yeah, they just didn't have the budget to hire any other. And also, I learned how to switch with one hand, move the cameras on the other, and then I'm anticipating shows, right? Like I learned the language of comedy, so I was live editing. I'm like, all right, they're gonna set up a joke, cut to camera two, here's the joke. Oh, someone's gonna stand up, back that camera up, they're gonna stand up, three, two, one, and they stood up. Like I just got to watch humans do this form of improv, and so I was improvising with them and anticipating and learning that language of give and take and cut to wide, we've got a joke, and we're back in, we're building tension, and just learning those rhythms. And I got really really good at it. And it was really fun. We taped a lot of improv comedy shows, both short form, kind of like Whose Line Is It Anyways, as well as long form, these improvised one acts, as well as variety shows, some stand-up comedy shows as well. We streamed on a platform, RIP, called Laugh Lounge, a lot of stand-up stuff there, and it was nice. Folks from LA flew in, they're like, wait, what, you're doing this all yourself? And I was like, yeah, just give me 5 minutes, I'll show you what I can do. And they're like, okay. And they're like, okay, yeah, you're pretty good. And I was like, yeah, I've done 700 shows. But yeah, it was great. But pandemic happened, and that was a very demanding job. And I was in the theater 80 hours a week, teaching, performing, as well as taking that video, doing it, and then chopping it down for marketing purposes as well. Which again, then I'm like, what is a good story? We have an hour. What's good 15 seconds? What's 30 seconds? It's storytelling. All of this glut of media that we all consume, it's storytelling, right? And so like understanding like what are bite-sized stories that people enjoy as well as this long form content. But yeah, that ended, and then I was like, all right. And then pandemic also, and being like, oh, I'm a parent, I can't be in the theater 80 hours a week anymore. And I returned to my love of cinema, right? Like that was a lot of live production. Um, which was wonderful. But I'm really excited to be working in narrative film now. I was before, but it's just nice to have that be a little bit more my primary focus. That was like a secondary, and that's bumped back up to primary.
Totally. That sounds like a really fun puzzle of like anticipating the joke and then figuring out which camera you need to switch to at what angle and at what size. I that just sounds like a whole lot of fun. I had a class in community college where we did uh news broadcasting, right? And so I got to work the switcher, and that was easy, right? Because it was that was all scripted. They had the teleprompter, then I knew exactly who was going to say what and when. But it just sounds like a lot of fun to feel the rhythm of comedy and then figure out where you need to go next. That just sounds like a lot of fun. Does anybody have any questions about? Yeah, let's hear it.
Are any of those 700 shows viewable anywhere? Are they like on a platform or something?
They're on YouTube. They're on Curious Comedy. It's called Curious Comedy, and it's on their YouTube. They still have a variety of shows that they still are putting up. But yeah, Curious Comedy, it's great. Uh, yeah. Yeah, the last few years is not my handiwork, but they're still great shows. A lot of my friends still perform there. I performed there on a house team called Filbert. If you ever want to see me getting silly on stage, you can look up Filbert at Curious Comedy. Yeah, of course I'm not live switching that because I'm on stage, but there's a lot of great shows. Yeah, check out Curious Comedy.
Cool. So you got out of comedy during the pandemic, and then you switched over to
Yeah, I hate laughing.
narrative. Yeah, just get rid of it. I'm not interested.
Done.
Stop smiling.
Yeah.
So that transition happened, or transition back into narrative film during the pandemic. So how quick was your switch over into the horror genre? Did you jump right in because you needed a break from the comedy, or was it gradual?
It was gradual. I mean, for my writing practices, I was kind of like alternating between comedy and horror, and also make like I have like a horror comedy TV show that I would love to make at some point. So like I was alternating between those two genres, and I hit some big success with I had a feature horror screenplay called Biological, win a competition, get land me management. So really kind of solidified my horror realm, right? So and I've got like a pocket of comedy scripts and a bunch of horror scripts. One of the first like I consider like I don't know why, but like produced horror films. I directed in 2009. 2009? 2000? No, it's 2011. 2010. Somewhere in the 2010s, I directed a horror short. So I've always had a love of the genre. And say always, I wasn't allowed to watch horror growing up. I wasn't allowed to watch comedy either. And now I'm doing both. So that's how parenting works. But yeah, I loved that build and release of tension that both comedy is. Like comedy hits you with something unexpected, and that you could get a laugh out of that, turning to the absurd, right? And building patterns. It's pattern recognition. And are you building that to get a laugh, or are you building a pattern to build dread? Right? You know, like in horror, it's like, oh, there's a creaky floor, there's a door that blows closed, the window flutters, something bad is gonna happen, something bad happens. Same with comedy, like you're building this joke, like someone makes, like you're just creating its pattern recognition, and how are we building that tension to either release it through laughter or terror. And so that's my like shorthand spiel on horror and comedy. But yeah, I think the big thing was I had success with that screenplay that landed me management that was like, all right, especially in this industry, people want to know you can do one thing well. It's annoying. Humans contain a multitude, right? Um, but you're more likely to get the job if they know, hey, that guy is a comedy guy and I can go to him consistently for laughs. Or that guy's a horror guy and I can come consistently for like screams and terror and whatever like subgenre of horror you're sitting in. Like labeling yourself as that gets you the next job because people just want to know that you can do that job well. And then if you are able to establish yourself, you can then branch out and be like, also I can do this. And then everyone's like, oh my God, Ben Stiller can direct drama. And they're like, yes, he can. Because again, humans contain a multitude, right? But in the industry, people just they're like, I need a horror guy. Who are they going to pick up the phone for, right? And so I just kind of like decided I was like, all right, we're gonna like build my portfolio right now, of for horror things right now because this is what's getting me traction. I have historical scripts that I wrote and had minor successes with, but didn't land me management. So in the management, which I've now parted ways with, but like, I was like, all right, cool. This is what's hitting now. This is what the market seems to want. And don't write for what the market wants. Write what you want to do. But I found my niche. And so I was like, all right, cool. Here's my niche, and I'm happy to slot in here. I wasn't changing my point of view or wasn't writing things I didn't want to write. I just knew that this is where I wanted to slot. So yeah, the past few years have been really just drilling in into my niche as making myself a horror guy with comedy experience. So then people get curious about my comedy stuff. So then I can pitch my horror comedy stuff.
Totally. That sort of segues pretty perfectly into my next question is because you also directed, we showed on the first night of KIF, we showed John Sunshine's Lost Rock and Roll Tapes. And
Yeah.
you directed that, but you were a director for hire there. I was
Mhm.
curious about how that sort of came about and how how it was directing somebody else's baby, that somebody else had written and created. And what would you like to talk about that a little bit? Why don't you talk about what John Sunshine is first, so kind of jog everybody's memory.
Yeah, so John Sunshine's Lost Rock and Roll Tapes is a first episode of a TV pilot series that operates well enough to stand on its own feet, but also like creates a world that hopefully will expand into a entire series about a young man and his friends who go to interview a rock and roll star. Hearing rumors that he kills people live on stage and is this like serial killer that just gets away with it and maybe he's possessed. And they're like, so they like lie their way into this club and interview this guy who ends up being batshit crazy and kills one of them. And they escape with their lives. But lose some sanity. There's like some mild supernatural elements in there. There's a question like, is he actually possessed by the devil? Sort of stuff. Yeah, that's the basic gist of the setup. Super fun to work with the cast and crew, a ton of talented folks. I ended up being attached to the project, um, especially during pandemic. A lot of us were online even more chronically than we are currently. At least speaking for myself. But I was on the site formerly known as Twitter, in which a lot of writing community that came out of that. I ended up getting several jobs just from being an active community, like participant in the Twitter community. Pipeline Writers is a screenwriting site. And there would be like Friday night hashtag Pipeline Writers that basically was created by the community. Like this was not a marketing stunt by them. They're just kind of like, this is crazy, y'all. Uh, but yeah, it's created by the community, and people would just chime in and share projects and talk about stuff. And people would start being like, "Hey, I'm going to do a table read of my pilot. Who wants? I need some actors." And they would live stream them, and I would watch pilots and stuff. And someone's like, "Hey, we need actors," and I was like, "Well, I'm free," and I played one of the parts. And the director or the writer at the time was like, I am going to produce this myself. I would like you to play the character that you were, as well as I saw your directing reel. It looks great. I would love you to direct as well. And at that point, and I think still, I don't feel confident enough to, especially as an actor. I love acting. I love doing stage, improv, comedy. I didn't think I could split my brain between the juggle that it takes to be a director, especially on a low budget indie thing where you are putting out fires all the time. You don't have a giant team doing that, where you are the one at the helm making that happen. And so I said, I feel like I can only do one of those. My preference would be to direct and recast that role if that's the direction you'd like to go. And Alice Wells, writer producer at the time, said, "Great, your director will hire someone else to take that role." We ended up like flipping some of the cast that like had read for other roles and moved them into different roles, and then hired someone new to come in. Yeah, so that was really exciting.
Just out of
Um,
curiosity, what role was that you'd originally been?
I'm so glad you ask, and my brain is blanking on all of my characters' names right now.
That's okay. I
Uh,
don't think anybody would remember. I'm not a character name person. But if you describe that
I was
character,
going to be the one who got stabbed to death. I was going to
there you
be, I was Tim.
Hey,
Tim.
that's
there
Yeah.
you go. That's exactly
Tim.
what I was looking for.
Yeah.
I
I was
remember
the,
John Sunshine's name. If it
yeah.
wasn't,
There's John Sunshine, the rest of them, and the guy who got stabbed.
Killer Joe. I would never forget Killer Joe though.
I mean, yeah. Yeah. And Bob too. The background, Killer Joe's right hand person,
Yes,
was a great
exactly.
last minute addition as well.
Cool.
But yeah, I was slated to play Tim. I'm really good at playing like sad, pathetic people. Like that's what I get cast as most of the time. And so like I was like, yeah, I'm Tim. That checks out. This is the role built for me. But ultimately, I was like, I this is one of my favorite things to ask people because especially at this level, we are used to wearing so many hats. And if you're not, like, that's totally fine. But like I ask people, like, if you, in all the roles that you've done in film, like, what do you enjoy doing? Like, have you found that yet? Like, do you know what role just speaks to you? And some people are like, yeah, I love light. I love shaping light. I love being a gaffer, right? And like I love being a cinematographer, like setting those shots. Like, and for me, it really is directing. I've lived in most of those roles, and so yeah. As juicy as a part as Tim was, as I was tempted, I was like, I really do want to just direct. So yeah.
Very cool. I had another question, but now I can't remember what it was.
I have a question.
I think there was a second part.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go for it.
Jude, let's hear you. Go.
I want to hear more about your origin story per se. I find a lot of weird similarities between your story and mine. I grew up in theater my whole entire life, and then, transitioned into the world of film. I'm kind of curious, did you have a moment where you're like, oh, this is what I'm going to do? Like, I know what to do with my life now, especially in the form of going from, starting as more of a thespian and then moving to behind the cameras. When did you have that moment of like, okay, I want to be on the other side of the camera?
Hmm. I think I've always lived on the other side of the camera, like on some levels, like selfishly to put me on screen. And then honestly, like it's only been like the past few years where I'm just like, if I never acted on screen again, I would be okay. And that's just a recent development. I think I was kind of like being like, oh, well, and like I'll probably still audition for things if I feel like it's right. But like I'm like, this is when I think directing John Sunshine was like a definite like, oh, this is what I'm built to do. I am built to direct. I am alive in this moment, which is like so hard. And like so like Bo Burnham talks about like directing is like the worst. Like he is the worst. He's like, "Oh, what's your passion? Oh, your passion requires $500,000 and 300 people to work like for months, like, and like it takes 5 years. Oh, that's what a passion that you have. Like other people's passions is painting and like writing poetry. Like
I
takes
love
no research.
managements.
But yeah, I think I lived in both worlds, both selfishly out of like oh I can be on screen, but I think I've always had like I back when I guess there's still a thing, but like DVD commentaries, like I would watch all the behind the scenes. I would watch, I think like M. Night Shyamalan honestly were some of the best behind the scenes featurettes for me, as well as like the Lord of the Rings, because they came with like, if you bought the extended editions, they had like 6 extra discs about how they made the thing. And I watched all of those multiple times. But like just looking at the craft of it all and like, I think like there's been an aspect of like lived in both, always been behind, and I think I've been letting go of like the on-screen thing of like, all right, especially as I get older and like now I have a kid and like resources are, I'm like, all right, I can, I need to pick a lane at this point. Like, I think it's good to live in all those lanes for a while because it helps you, especially if you're wanting to direct, especially if you're wanting to direct, learn how to do sound, pick up the, learn how to edit, learn how to balance audio, learn how to pull a lens, learn how to set up lights, learn how to act. Because you are working with each of those departments and you need to be able to talk to them in an intelligent way and empathetically too, of like, I know how much time it takes. I know how heavy C stands are, and you've got to bring 20 up 3 flights of stairs. Not that we had 20, but we did have 3 flights of stairs during John Sunshine for the opening sequence. And I'd asked for grips, and I was like, can we please hire grips? And Alice was just like, look, I'm funding this out of pocket. No. And I was like, okay. Uh, and like, and that's going to happen to you at every level. Like at this indie level, like, yeah, you're not going to have grips because like maybe you're not paying anyone. Like, I am trying, it's a shorthand here's a soapbox, y'all. We all have a shorthand for like zero budget film. There's no such thing as a zero budget film. You have resources that are available to you in the means of like cameras, lights, whatever. Like maybe you're filming on your phone. You have the resources to buy that phone. That's not zero budget. Like you have the resources to not work on the day that you're filming and not have to, you can still buy groceries. That's a resource. There's no such thing as a zero budget film. When anyone's like, just go out and make it. You can do it for no money. I was like, it still takes resources, okay? So I whenever I like, and I still talk about like zero budget filmmaking. Yeah, okay. Anyways, soapbox over. Yeah, you're just working with resources, for John Sunshine, like, I was like, all right, cool, we're filming at a storage facility. We're gonna go rent a storage facility. It's gonna, and producer was just like, nope. And I was like, what are we doing? And like, I was like, okay. And you're always having that conversation. What resources do we have? Can we spend $150 on a storage locker and film there for the day? No. Okay, cool. Like, we're putting that money somewhere else. Great. And also ask yourself, do we need to spend that money, right? Like, can we take that money and put it somewhere else? Like, yeah, we could have easily rented that and cut some other corner, but like we found other ways in and prioritize. So always ask yourself, what are the priorities? What are things that can fall down? Like, will this project break if I don't have X? Because a lot of times and this is always true. The movie you are making in your mind is never going to be the movie that you actually make. Like, never. Stuff will fall apart. Like shots won't line up. You'll get into the edit bay and be like, I can't use this shot because it doesn't make sense in the edit, right? And so then the story will evolve in the edit bay. Like, that's the final stage of filmmaking. People talk about it. It is real. Like, that's the final stage of writing. That's the final stage of movie making. That's where the movie finally comes together. All the rest is just putting the ingredients up for the chef, who is the editor, and probably the director sitting over their shoulder, if you're not wearing both hats, sitting there actually assembling the thing.
Totally. They say that a movie's made three times, right? Once when
Yep.
you write it, and then when you shoot it, it's a completely different movie, and then when you edit it, it's a completely different movie. So, I had a question. I remember what my question was. I wrote it down, and I didn't look at it. I wanted to ask you more about Pipeline. What is that? A Portland local thing, or is it just Twitter? Is it just anybody who's in that Twitter circle? Talk about
it's
Pipeline a little bit.
It's national. It's a large, well-respected screenplay competition, essentially. Yeah, they do screenplays. They have short film. Now they have like a variety of like screenplays, short films, TV. I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on this, but Huntsman and Snow White, a movie that came out like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That was an award-winning screenplay that came through that and was purchased after it won Pipeline. So yeah, it was just it's a long-running, well-respected screenplay site, and there's so many screenplay places you can submit your screenplay for feedback, for competitions and stuff. Pipeline's one of the ones I would recommend. And like, not that none of the others don't do anything for you, but like Pipeline is well vetted at this point.
Now, is that the pipeline writers? Is that on Twitter or was it on?
It's a website.
It's a website.
They're on Twitter, but they're on social medias just because they're a company. But yeah, Pipeline Writers. I have a mug from them because during Pipeline Writers, they're like, wow, this is like, it was such a thing during pandemic that Pipeline Writers was a trending hashtag.
Cool. I don't know how I've never heard of that. That sounds really
Yeah.
Huh.
I mean, it's definitely petered off at this point as far as an engaged community. A lot of the writing community has jumped, a lot of that community that I was a part of has jumped over to Blue Sky. So join us on Blue Sky. Where most of us are over there. There's still folks over on
is Blue Sky a forum or what is it?
Blue Sky is like Twitter. It's
okay.
another microblogging site. It's founded by the founders of Twitter. And they launched like 4 years ago. So yeah, Blue Sky is great. And like, Blue Sky just has a lot better like curation for like you can curate a feed and everyone just uses the hashtag like SkyScript, and that's the community that's there now. Instead of pipeline writers, it's SkyScript. Everyone's hanging out there. I got a job as a first AD and an editor on a project up in Seattle from that. People reached out to me like, "Hey, we know you've made short films. We've seen your director's reel. Can you come help us make a film?" And I went up to Seattle and was the first assistant director on that project, and it won some awards. It's online now. It's called Chat,
Chat?
directed by Brad Johnson. About a woman who meets a man online, and not everything is as it seems. Yeah.
Cool.
It has both expected and I would say unexpected twists, but you tell me. Uh,
Sounds good. Well, that's everybody's homework, is to check out Chat before next
Yeah.
month. Does anybody have any more questions about John Sunshine, or about maybe being a director for hire, or putting your script out there?
I kind of do. I was actually talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and he's currently working on a horror mystery type script or whatever, and he was asking me what he does to, like, when he finishes it, how does he get it out there? How does he get somebody to buy it in order to make it or whatever? And then we just started talking about pipeline. Is that like probably the best route to go for him, or?
Probably not. I mean, the percentage of people that sell their stuff off of script pipeline, I mean, no slight to your friend's script, is like less than 1%. Like you're not selling your script off of script pipeline. Inktip, I hear a lot of writers. I have not had personal success on Inktip, but Inktip is a place where you can put your script up for sale. That I have a lot of indie producers, so you're not looking at like tentpole. No one from Paramount is looking there. But you would potentially land an indie director that looking to produce something for like, you're probably also not going to get rich, but they might pay you a couple $1,000s. I think I've heard people getting up to 5 figures off of Inktip as selling your script. So Inktip is like a known marketplace. If you're looking for feedback, there's a variety of places. Like Script Pipeline is great. Coverfly is a great aggregator of screenplays competitions. So you can submit through a place called Coverfly, and that they're just an aggregator, and you just see what ones are popular right now, and you can submit through them. Similar to Film Freeway, but for scripts. But they also track your success, and so I've ended up on the red list, which is their like top scripts of the month of the year for Coverfly, and that helps you get noticed. But yeah, I think like if you're looking just to sell, Inktip is a great place to maybe put it up. Oh, another one called Script Revolution. I think they're still around. Was another kind of like indie marketplace. If you're looking to sell to like, if you're looking to pitch Universal, all of that, like find a manager, find a agent, query them, get an IMDb Pro um, subscription. You can go to look and see who is the agents on these films, who is the agent on, like who is the producers, and you can query. And I people challenge themselves to get 100 rejections because it is a hard uphill road. But those are ways to like actively engage. And if you're looking like local, like if you were like, hey, like I'm not like looking to sell the Universal, like I would rather get this thing made, within the next year or two, go to film festivals, meet directors, and just be like, I have a script. Would you be interested? I've been quartered at film festivals where someone gives me a 30-minute pitch, and that's not the way to do it. But if like someone's like, hey, I've got like this thriller about a woman who wants to kill her husband and ends up accidentally killing like her husband, their ex-lover, and goes on an accidental murder spree. I was like, would you be interested in reading it? I was like, sure, I'll read that. Like that's no one's script. I just came up with that right now. But like if like someone pitched me that, I'd be like, sure, yeah, here's my email, send it to me.
Mine now.
Great. Yeah. If that speaks to you, write it up.
That's like fun. Oh, it's Tucker and Dale. It's Tucker. I just realized.
Tucker versus Evil. It's
That's
so
right.
good.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
as far as IP goes, protecting your stuff, do you ask people to sign NDAs and stuff like that, or
I don't. At this
or do
point,
they
like,
ask you?
they might ask me, and I'll sign an NDA. At this point, like, I do kind of like let people know, like, I am developing my own work. Uh, if there are similarities between your work and mine, like, you just like, I haven't made anyone sign something. I probably should, but like, ideas are a dime a dozen. There's so few cases of like anyone stealing ideas. It's really,
Is that
I,
mainly because people just want to do their thing, whatever it is, and they appreciate what other people are doing for their thing?
Mhm.
I mean, there's not. I guess the idea of actively trying to just glean and steal maybe is not as bad as people think it is.
No, it's really not. And especially like especially if you're pitching like a like Hollywood person, like asking them to sign an NDA is kind of a red flag to them.
Really?
Oh yeah, they're not signing NDAs to read scripts. Like they're just like, oh, you seem like trouble. I have 100 other scripts that I didn't have to sign an NDA for. I'm not gonna bother. And so like
Um,
it's kind of a red flag at this point.
the whole idea of $1 million idea is just bullshit because it's not the idea, it's the implementation of the idea. It's how well can you execute this thing.
Yep. Yeah.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
edit
got
it, yeah.
yeah. I mean, I got upset, like, not like crazy upset, but like there was a TV show that went into production with Kurt Brunner, a comedian. Or I don't even know if it made it into production, but it had been announced that they were doing this project about midwives and doulas. And I was like, God damn it, I have a midwife and doula comedy sitcom. And like, you know, and like that was basically like I tweeted that, and one of my friends was like, "Hey man, take that down. Like I know you're." He's like, "I know you're fine, but if someone sees that, like they'll just be like, oh shit, don't work with this guy." Because like I wasn't really angry or anything, but I was just like, he's like, "Hey man, use that sample to write on the show if they actually go into production." I don't think NBC ended up not moving forward with a pilot, but like ideas are there, and like to your point, it's about execution, and like especially when it comes to Hollywood level, they're not gonna risk stealing your idea. They would rather pay you $50,000. They pay people $500,000 for stuff that doesn't get made. Like they're not gonna risk a legal battle to steal your idea. And like if it happens, uh, I'll owe you $10. Like seriously, like I'll
Well,
give you
I,
10
I
bucks.
guess you could always do the poor man's copyright, write your thing, put it in an envelope, and mail it to yourself, and that way you have a sealed envelope with the date stamp on it.
Yeah, I think I've heard that doesn't really hold up in court.
Really?
I don't know. And that could be apocryphal. I don't know anyone who's had to do that as their like copyright thing. And if you're actually concerned and you're just like, look, for my own peace of mind, I need to do it, register it with the WGA. I can't remember how much it costs. It might be $40 to register it with
And what's a WGA?
it's the
Writers Guild Association.
Writers Guild of America. And there's a West branch and East branch, but yeah, WGA will register your script. You'll have a
Oh.
tracking number.
I see.
So yeah, if for your own peace of mind, if you're just like, I know people say it's not a thing, but I do know it can happen for my own peace of mind, you can register with the WGA. And I'd recommend doing that over like the copyright office. You can go to the US copyright and get a US copyright. I think the WGA is just as good, if not better, to have a WGA registration for your script.
Is
So
that
that's
like
something.
is that like a yearly fee thing for them, or how
I think it's a
they do
one
their
time.
fees?
I think it's
One-time?
just a one-time fee. Now, if your script changes, I think you have to re-register it. So
I
you've got to
see.
be pretty locked in to the version that you're sending out. And if you do any significant changes, I'm sure if you fixed a typo, no one would bat an eye. But like if you started changing a character arc, yeah, probably needs a new registration. But yeah, if you're concerned about that, WGA would be the way to go.
Yeah, I registered one about 3 years ago. It was $25 back then.
Okay. It
Okay.
might still be $25. Yeah. It's not bank breaking.
As far as, like you said earlier on, you're doing different things. Do you find that doing different genres helps make you a more well-rounded? Or do you think it's better for people just to really dive into a certain genre deeper?
I think so. I think it's made me more well-rounded as far as like, examining the human experience. Like, anytime we see like a horror film that has a laugh, I'm not like, well, this was a horror film. Why is there a joke? Same thing with like, like a comedy film that has a heartfelt moment. I'm like, I'm not here for a drama. Like it's like, the human experience has breadth and depth, and like I think engaging in those human moments will strengthen your script no matter what. So like, if you're just hammering too hard one way on any script, you will yeah, I think it will just kind of comes off a little bit one note. So like make sure you're giving breathing room, right? Because breath gives tension. It allows us to process things. Because yeah, if everything's an action sequence all the time, it's a boring movie. It needs to have weight. And
Well, I mean, that's good to know.
yeah.
I guess my question a little bit more was, like you've done comedy in the past, maybe you've done a drama in the past. I mean, do you find that it's good to maybe do a documentary, do, this, that, the other thing, just to try out the different fields to see what really resonates, or maybe you learn something by just doing that thing versus just, like you say, maybe just staying in just one field, just comedy or just horror.
Yeah. I think it's up to like each individual person. Like some people, especially if you haven't like found a genre that you're like, this one speaks to me, and you're like, I think I'm good at this one. Like, you know,
Hmm.
explore those other ones, if you need to, or, learn the rules of it. But I think like this kind of comes back around to like storytelling, right? Like if we're so, I mean, I tell this to my comedy students, like, look, you're doing 6 shows a week, you're doing 7 rehearsals, like comedy and like script writing, screenwriting is informed by life. We're supposed to be exposed to life, and then we come back to our creative endeavors. So if we let our personal lived experiences inform our creative storytelling. So like, if you need to learn the rules by diving deep, like do that, but also live your life, right? Like if you're just only reading, writing, whatever, I think cross-pollination is huge, right? That's how we discover the next new thing, right? So like expose yourself to other things, even though you're like, if you're locked in, you're like, look, I know I'm a rom-com guy all day long. Like that's what I'm good at. I might be, I will never write a horror script. I don't expect you to, right? But if you're like, I like horror and I like rom-coms, I'm like, try your hand at it. See what works, it doesn't, and read scripts too. Like, there's so many scripts that are now available to you online that you can go and be like, hey, what does the script to Looper look like?
Hmm.
Like, um, what does the screenplay to The Matrix look like? What does the screenplay for, like all of these different films, like, 50 First Dates, how do you write comedy? All of that, like look at those patterns, and like every screenplay writer's different. You're writing, some directors write for themselves. Always if you're reading a screenplay written by a director, they're writing for themselves, and if you're looking to give your script to someone else, those are not necessarily the best scripts to read, if that makes sense.
I mean,
Um,
like, let's say it's a James Cameron Terminator thing, I
mhm.
mean, do you think he's still just writing for himself, though?
Yeah, yeah. If he's writing, he's writing for himself because he
Okay.
can picture it in his mind, right? He can picture. He's like, this is mostly a sales document at this point. Like,
Correct.
my job is just to make sure the producers see the movie that's already in my mind, And also, I'm James Cameron, so give me money. And if you don't, I have a lot of, so like whatever. Like whereas like some of these other scripts that get picked up and bought, like they have to translate the movie that's in their head to the reader, to the producer, then to the director. And so that is a very different skill when it comes to writing the story. So like screenplay writing, man, it's a tough thing because you know, novels you can write, you can tell what is in people's head. But with screenplay writing, you're having to communicate the world without saying like this is what they're thinking because we can't see that. Um, you get away with like maybe one of those in a script, and some screenwriters or like some script readers will be just like, oh, we can't novice move. We can't see what they're thinking. Don't write that. And like, yeah, you've kind of got to like you've got to prove yourself before you can write that kind of stuff.
Well,
Like
I mean,
Brothers.
how do
Yeah.
you feel about like, well, just two things, like the voiceover stuff. Like somebody is kind of running through the woods or something, and then you can hear what they're saying in their mind, you know, or because people, well, I
Yeah.
guess some people
Matter of
have been.
taste.
I mean, because I remember like in the original Blade Runner, they didn't want to do it, but the movie house made them do a voiceover,
Yeah.
and I could see why they did it.
Hmm.
There were
Yeah.
times where it's like what he said in the voiceover was nice, but it can take you out of the moment.
Yeah.
So I mean, like I say, they both had their pros and cons. I like the idea that it's there to see, but I can also see why Ridley did not want it.
Yeah. Well, and like
So-
putting a voiceover in it is very different than like in the action line. Like we see Jane thinking about how she misses someone. I was like,
No, well,
you
yeah,
write Jane is sad. Like I don't know.
yeah. Oh,
Jane plays with her food. Like instead of just like saying someone is an emotion, give them an action, right?
Well-
Actors love that.
well, like for example, I was just in Altered Carbon. There was some like where they're narrating some other stuff or what they're thinking, or
Well,
I
and
mean,
that's
it
a
didn't
show
happen
about
all the
people
time.
being in their heads, right? Because
Right.
their bodies are not their own. They're
Yeah.
sleeving in, and so like having a brain VO makes more sense to me. And it's a matter of taste. Like I avoid a voiceover like the plague. Have I
Okay.
used it before? Yes. Do I like using it? For me, personal taste. Last
Yeah,
last
gotcha.
ditch effort. I'm like, is
Okay.
there any other way I can show this?
Right.
Or
Okay.
is there a motivated reason why we are hearing their
All right.
thoughts, right?
Okay, so the other question is like sometimes I have like there's all these concepts I want to have in the movie, but when it comes down to what's all of the minutia dialogue going to be, it's like I mean, there's a part of me is like I don't care, somebody else write it. And I mean, I and so sometimes I'm like, it's just like because I don't want to write something that sounds stupid and takes you away from where you're going. And a lot of people
Yeah.
are like, don't worry about the dialogue. I mean, don't worry about words so much because movie is a visual format. And it's like, well, there's obviously got to be a happy marriage between the two.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you find, where do you find the balance between those things?
Sure. Yeah, every screenwriter has their strengths and every screenwriter has their weaknesses. And like, looking at these big tent poles, you'll see like screenplay by like 5 different people. Each of them probably like, and there's like usually a story by credit, and like that person wrote the whole thing sometimes, and then they'll like other people will do a pass on the script, and then like WJ rules if you rewrite 30% of the script, I forget what the percentage is right now, but like if you rewrite over 30% of the script, you get a credit. And so, these things do get rewritten. If you're just like, hey, I've got a world and here's like my baseline, like write the script and write the dumb dialogue. Like, and I mean this like this, and this is advice I need to take for myself, but like write the dumb dialogue. Just be like, I'm mad. Like, I'm the thing you have. Like, that's the thing that they're ultimately saying. Get the screenplay written. Now we have the bones, the skeleton, and we can start adding the flesh of like, well, what would they really say when they're mad, right? Maybe they don't actually say anything and we delete the line of dialogue and just be like, they cross their arms, right? But then you have the skeleton, right? Like, so if you're hanging up on those words, my favorite tool is I'll put asterisks in my script. I'll just put 3 asterisks. And then I'm struggling on how this actually coalesces. I'll be like three asterisks, fight. And then I'll just like keep writing into something else. And then when I open up the document, I can control F, can find all of those asterisks and just go through and be like, oh, okay, I can write this section now. I think Joss Whedon talks about like write what you were enjoying writing. Like if it's the 80th scene in the movie, write that scene next. And then you're like, oh, I want to write that meet cute moment. Write that next. Like, you'll have more work to do later making all of these pieces come together. But write what's fun to you. If you're struggling in the moment, just write the dumbest dialogue. You can fix it later. And if you're just like, I don't know, you can hire someone to dialogue write. Like if you're really like being like, hey, I need someone, I've got the story, I need some dialogue help. You can hire someone to write that, or like, have someone come alongside you and collaborate if you can find the right person. But also you can just hire someone to do that, right? Yeah, it's all about getting that story out, right? And getting the bones of it finished.
Now, do you give them? I mean, I'm okay with giving people credit for whatever they do, So I mean, so if you bring in people, then you just list them as, what would you call them when you credit them?
It depends. I mean, like, you could come in with like your 5-page doc. Like I know people who've done this. They're like, here's my movie in 10 pages. Here's the world, here's the characters, here's the things that happen, here's how it all gets resolved, and you can tell this pitch of the movie in 20 minutes. And they're like, great, let's make the movie. You hire a screenwriter and they can write that, right? And then you get the story by credit and they get a screenplay credit by.
Okay,
So
maybe
you
you
would get
don't have to do it yourself. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, if I mean, especially at a certain level, at this level, like most places, if you're going to sell a script, they want you to have the script. But, once people have established themselves, they're coming in with these 10-page documents. They're not going to quote unquote, waste their time writing it on spec without being paid. So they'll come in. Here's the movie idea I have. Here's the characters. It's a guy trapped in a computer, like doesn't realize he is. Then he's brought into this world of rebels, and then the rebels come back and fight, and they release people out of the Matrix. And this whole thing's called the Matrix. He's the one, and he frees himself to have ultimate powers, and leaves the real world to go back and liberate people in the Matrix. Right? Great. That's the pitch. Screenplay doesn't exist. We're buying that movie. Go and write it. We'll pay you money. Right? That's how that would happen in like the Hollywood system if you're an established writer. Now, if you like come in and like, cool, well, send me the script. Like, I'm assuming you don't have any produced credits. Sorry if that's a bad assumption, but like if an unvetted person comes in, they're gonna want you to have the script too. Yeah.
Well, how much would it cost to have somebody else help you write the script? What are like the rates or just a general idea? I'm just good.
Very negotiable. I mean, if you're paying union minimums, I think a union minimum for a screenplay is like 80,000. So you're probably gonna want to go union.
$80,000. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, the average screenwriter maybe does one of these like one every year and a half, and then the rest of the time they're working on their own spec stuff, they're pitching their own. So it's got to be enough for a living wage, and you've got to space that money over time. Sometimes they could get back end on that, right? And I forget what WGA minimums currently are, but I think it was like 79,000, I think, for minimums. But that's
Still,
union.
That's
yeah.
So how much are people not in the how much are they otherwise? Like,
depends. I mean, it's you can get people to work on it and be like, look, I'll pay you if we make this. I would
you
say
can negotiate how it's paid then. All right.
Yeah, you can
how good of a
negotiate
salesperson you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you've got to have someone who really believes in it.
I've got pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, and like if you find someone who really believes in it, great. You can be like, yeah, it's 5,000. I'll give you $5,000 for a draft of this. Like and 5% of the back end, right? Like if this gets made, you own 5% of the movie. So you can negotiate it and figure it out, but like, be aware of like what you're asking for people. Like how long is this going to take someone working full time to make this, right? And just be like, can I at least pay them minimum wage, and know that they're going to be taxed out of that, know that they're going to have, pay for healthcare, all that, and some people are like, cool, I'll do this as my side job. I'll get it done in 2 months. I'll take $5,000,
I got you.
So, you've got to find your pitch for it. ISA, the International Screenwriting Association. That would be a place that you could look to hire someone. I have seen screenwriting calls of like, I have a world and characters looking for screenwriter to develop screenplay alongside, offering $10,000 and 2%. So the ISA would be a place that you could put kind of a call out for that thing, and you can set your own rates of like, here's what I can afford, and see if anyone bites.
What does writing on spec mean?
Writing on spec is speculative. So you are
speculative. All right, gotcha.
Yeah, it's speculative writing. All of my screenplays sitting on my hard drive are speculative. No one has commissioned them. No one owns them. And the perk to some people are like, never write spec, and some people are like, write on spec. If you came in with said pitch document and are like, hey, here's my movie, and they'll be like, cool, write it up. We'll pay you $10,000. You write that script, and they decide, we don't like it, but they've paid you $10,000 and they own it.
Yep.
Whereas if you came in and were like, here's my pitch deck, and they're like, cool, do you have the script? And then you give it to them, and they're like, we don't like it. You still own it. So that's kind of the pro con of like writing on spec versus not. And a lot of those deals, there's like sunset deals where like if they don't go into production with your thing, the rights will return to you with 1 to 3 years is kind of the average. The rights will return to you. I have friends who've like sold stuff, they never made it, and they're like, I just got the rights back. I'm going to try to sell it again.
That's cool. I didn't know about that part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Luke, we've got just a few minutes left, so I just wanted to say that I have very much enjoyed listening to some of your insights here, and I just wanted to go around and give everybody one final opportunity to ask a question or give their final thoughts. Why don't we jump over instead of putting Jude on the spot this time? Why don't we jump over to Molly? Do you have any? Either one of you, final thoughts, final questions, either way.
I don't have anything at the moment.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well,
that was good. It's very helpful. Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah. And if you ever think of anything, shoot me a message on Blue Sky is probably a good place to find me. Find me on Blue Sky.
There you
Shoot me
go.
a message there, or I guess find my website. My email's up there. Feel free to shoot me an email if you ever have a question. So.
Totally. Larry, final questions, final thoughts.
I don't have anything, but thanks for all the good information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anthony, you've been quiet tonight. Usually you have tons of questions. What's up? How are you?
I follow Luke on his socials, so
There you
I
go.
learned from him there too.
There you go.
Definitely thank you for all the information. I wrote it down tonight. We haven't really had anyone too much tap into the writer side, so that was awesome to journey through that wisdom.
Nice.
And
Nice.
I do have a question for you horror guys. I've always wondered if like you're walking through the store, because like sometimes my script came to me in some of the weirdest locations. You guys think of that gory murder-ish type stuff in the middle of like your shopping trips at Walmart or something?
I mean, yeah. You're like, oh, that's grotesque. Oh, could I make
Yeah.
that into a thing? Like, oh, that's weird.
Or like
oh,
while you're taking care of your child or something, just
yeah, you're like, oh, that made me flinch. Oh, I wonder if that would make people flinch if we put it on screen. Yeah, I mean, I have the eyeball trauma in Vines, and that part like was like that script changed a lot in the years of developing it, but like that eyeball trauma always stayed. I'm like, yep, that's the moment that's going to get people cringing. So, yeah,
Love it.
And then another question is, for those who miss Vines, do you have locations to watch your films, including the others that you've made?
Oh man, mine are scattered all over. I have a YouTube that is not well maintained that has very old things. So if you want to see how I've grown as a filmmaker, go
Yeah,
watch
that's
those.
fitting that. And
Yeah,
where is that at?
YouTube.
YouTube.
And what's the name there?
Oh,
What is the name?
Oh, okay, just look it up.
Probably just my name.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and I've got like I do have a playlist of like my narrative works that has like a third of my stuff there. I've got a few things on my Vimeo. You can follow me on Vimeo and catch a couple things there. And then some stuff is lost to the ages.
And then
for better or worse.
Yeah.
my last is just a curiosity about yourself. I've seen your creations mixing comedy with horror.
Hmm. Yeah.
How
Oh man.
how much can you go into that? Like, are you working on one of those projects?
Yeah, I can talk about I'm not working on any of them actively. I've got one called Vamp ER, and it's about someone who like they're a doctor, they get turned into a vampire and get like shuffled into like a hospital for vampires because or like for monsters because monsters need doctors too. So she has to like deal with like being a vampire, a new vampire, and like she's a bleeding heart, so of course she has to help these monsters, right? So it's like a sitcom. It's like Scrubs meets like What We Do in the Shadows,
Nice.
is the tone and vibe. So would love to get that made. That's like one of my big horror comedy pieces that I would love
Like
to get made at this point.
like
Yeah.
iZombie.
Yeah.
Oh,
That was my first
Mhm.
thought too. Yeah.
Yeah,
I binge
iZombie.
watch
Yeah,
that at least once
definitely.
a
Yeah,
year.
Well,
And
iZombie's
I
great.
always think of Bruce Willis with his Army of Darkness.
Mhm.
Always able to combine, but it was a great combination. So
Yeah, Army Darkness is
I think
so
there's a
good.
lot of ways you can combine comedy with others. I mean, but as long as people know what they're getting,
Hmm.
not like the new Joker movie where people did not know what they were getting, a Broadway musical.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I'm
Well,
yeah.
I don't want to say eyed wise shut. Go realize it's a freaking musical.
Oh,
So
I've been made aware.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I did not know that going in. I mean,
Oh
I know we had
no. I
Lady
mean,
Gaga and everything, but yeah, I was just like, what are they doing here? Because it
I
wasn't a
do.
Joker movie like the
that
first one.
musical was horrible.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it was
Yeah.
just like, what are they doing to us here? I was just
Well,
like, I think the
it's
joke's on us. I get it. It's
a
the
little
joke's
bit.
on us.
Well, and
But
Todd
anyway,
Phillips doesn't like musical. He's come out and said he doesn't like music. I'm like,
what
don't
the
direct a
F?
don't direct a musical, man. Like, if you anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no,
And then
but I
I'm
mean,
like,
it does work when, like you're saying, there's a lot of ways
yeah,
it does work.
yeah. And like, yeah, I mean, honestly, when I'm writing my horror films, I have to take out jokes because I just am like finding. I was like,
Oh,
oh no, that
it,
kills the moment. Like,
Yeah. Mhm.
well,
uh,
well,
yeah. So like, I'm always taking. I tend to be taking jokes out of my horror scripts. Yeah.
well, like Jeepers Creepers, like he's got that license plate, So I mean, it's kind of like okay, you know, like be eating you, or be eating you, or
Yeah.
beating whatever you think it's going to be, beating
Yeah.
you or be eating you. I mean, it's like,
Well, Jude, do you have any final
but
thoughts
like,
or questions before we wrap up here?
Well, if we had more time, I have about 1,000,000,001. So if you ever have time, maybe I'll shoot you an email and kind of pick your brains more on some things. But I
Yeah.
really do appreciate all of the information that you were able to give us today. Truly inspiring. And I'm definitely thinking of a lot of things right now.
Good.
Yeah. Very good.
Well,
Very fun.
a lot of my films have been like 48-hour films, and I still count them. And some of you might have heard me talk about this, but just like, filmmaking, like many art forms, requires practice, and filmmaking is, a difficult thing to practice because a musician can go out and practice their guitar and play their guitar, and then they can get together with their band, right, and play together, but they've been practicing. As a filmmaker, it's really hard to practice acting without a camera. It's hard to practice lighting without a camera. It's hard to run a camera without lighting and actors. It's hard to run sound with no one to capture sound. It is a team sport, and it requires everyone to be on the field. So these sort of like filmmaking sprints are a great way to practice, right? Of just like, we're making something in the next 72 hours, 48 hours. And if stuff doesn't come out, that's okay because we've practiced our craft. And like, if you never show that to people, that's okay. If you want to show people, that's also great because like you'll surprise yourself what you can do in those time crunches. But I just encourage people like, yeah, set a timer. If you don't have like a project that you're like super passionate about, like actually putting into production, you're just like, I want to practice, get people together, practice, because like it's so easy to like, time goes by, speaking for myself too, but like time goes by, it's easy to be like, all right, I'll do this when it's perfect and I'll make this and I'll do that, and like time goes by and you haven't practiced your craft. So like making these like film sprints is a way to practice your craft with your band. Find your band that you like playing with. Find your filmmakers you enjoy making something with. And even if it's three of you, I made a film a couple years ago where it's like me, a cinematographer, um, I had like a PA, two actors, and like a makeup artist. And the makeup artist came with the actors because it was a graduation project. And yeah, so anyways, like I was like directing, holding boom mic. I got on camera because one of our actors dropped out. Like I was doing it all like, but we made something and it went to a couple festivals, right? And we filmed it in one night because we just went out and made something, right?
They're
Was it perfect?
organized
No.
organized thing. Like I know in game development, they have game jams where it's like there's thousands of different game jams you can enjoy. Is there a similar thing in film?
There are, yeah. There's online ones as well as in person. Like a lot of major cities have these film race, like 48-hour film projects is like a well-organized organization that puts these on. I've been part of one. There's one called like 72-hour film racing.
Yes, important, yes.
But yeah, the 72-hour film racing is an international one that you sign up online and people from around the globe are making a film in the next 72 hours. You get a line of dialogue that you have to use. Everyone uses that. Everyone has a prop, and you oftentimes get a genre. So you can't pre-plan and you just have to go. Like there's very little pre-planning aside from like, hey, who's got the camera? Who's got the mic? Do we have some special effects? Do we have like if we're gonna like are we gonna do blood in this? Who's got what? You know, talk to each other and been like, cool, we've got six of us. We're going to make something this. We sign up. It kicks off February 8th. We're going to make something. So yeah, it's a way to spark your creativity and kick you out the door to practice your craft. Yes. So 72-hour film racing. There's a variety of other ones. I know. Oh, Beck and Woods just had one that they do annually. Beck and Woods did a Quiet Place, and they just did Heretic. Anyways, they have one that they do that's a 48-hour thing, and that one's great. I always want to do it because I'm like, yeah, getting in front of like if you win, you're like in front of Beck and Woods, which would be really cool. But yeah, these exist out there. Yeah, and some of them require a small sign-up fee. But you split it 5 ways. It's $5 a piece, $10 a piece. Not too bad. But yeah, these are great. Or bring a team. Come to a big city. It is a much harder ask. I'd say just do the online ones. But make sure you have good internet because I have done online ones, and then you're like, oh, I have to upload the film, and my internet is dying. Yeah, that's a whole nother level of stress that I'm just like, oof. I haven't slept for 72 hours and now my upload continues to fail.
And I don't think I'd be built for that. Doing all of that in the 72 hours.
I
I would want the time,
Yeah. Well, and that's the
And
thing.
the
Like
sleep.
yeah, know your limits too. Like know what works for you.
Totally.
But if you find yourself not getting out, find ways to get out and make something just for yourself. Practice. Like if you're like, all right, I'm gonna practice setting up my light and setting up an interview, like whatever. Like I'm gonna try to recreate that shot that I saw that Roger Deakins did in the assassination of Jesse James. Like, can I recreate that this weekend? You know, see what you can do with your tools and just keep practicing and keep making.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, we are now over time, but I wanted to give John an opportunity to get a last thought in there if you would so choose.
Well, I just thank you so much. It's a lot of the screenwriting side of it has kind of been a mystery, and you've helped helped us understand that a lot more. And I mean, you know how it is. Each of these aspects, producer and whether your music or your sound or your light script, I mean, there's just so many aspects that a lot of us are just like don't understand that whole thing completely. We know about it, but just on the surface. So I appreciate you fleshing this out more. I mean, obviously there's more to go, but
Yeah.
just, and I like the idea of I've been, like I say, toying with trying some different things just to see what it's like. But yeah, I like the idea of crossing stuff. I mean, again, it reminds me of like Red Dwarf, sci-fi and comedy, like the Orville or Avenue
Oh, man.
5. I mean, they've been crossing genres with comedy all over the place. So,
Yeah, comedy is an easy thing I
well,
say easy, but like it's to infuse is natural, I feel, to infuse into many things because again, we contain multitudes. And so like the
yeah.
humans are absurd. Like that's like humans are absurd, human behavior, and that you'll just find those absurd moments as you're writing. And it's just a matter of how do we acknowledge it and call it out and create comedy, or do we just ignore it and sweep it under the rug? Like
It's a
how do we
tough one
approach?
because like you're saying, it's like sometimes you're like, well, let's just go there and have fun, and other times you're like, no, we got to be a purist. And
Yeah.
so they both have their place because I like hard sci-fi and I like hard things too,
Yeah.
but I think it'd be really fun to do some mix-ups too. So that's like I say, I think it's nice to have some flexibility. And
Yeah.
anyway, appreciate
If
everything
Of
you've done.
course. One last plug that I don't get kickbacks for telling you about all these places, but they're great places. If you're like feeling like you're ready to start working on the craft of like pitching your projects and like getting into the business side of screenwriting, Roadmap Writers has a program that helps get you into that business side of screenwriting.
You say
Um,
world or word?
World.
World. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, into the world of the business side of it, right? Where you're having to talk to agents and producers and managers and like what are they looking for from your script, right? Um, Roadmap Writers has programs that allow you to practice pitching to actual execs. Like they're probably not going to buy your stuff, like you know, and but they're actual people who work in the industry. And I know people who have gotten signed from those pitches. They don't promise that they make sure like this is practice. This is not a real thing. But then I know people who have, and so they're it is cool, but they don't promise that, right? They can't promise that. But yeah, it's a great program. I've sent scripts there to get feedback on, be like, hey, is this script ready? Send it off and pay for some feedback. But find writing groups too. Like you can go out there and pay a ton of money, and people are more than happy to take your money to do stuff, right? But find your tribe, right? Find people who understand your voice. Like start a screenwriting group. Like hammer out the story together and yeah, you can go out there and pay people, but also find the people around because like that's going to be just as good for honing your craft and honing your voice and giving you accountability for it, right? So and if you don't have it, those communities exist online. But yeah, Roadmap Writers really they leveled me up on some stuff, so I'll say good
Well,
things
we
about them.
appreciate knowing the right places to look because a lot of us we've never heard a lot of these things, so it
Yeah.
does help because sometimes we don't know where to go to
Yeah.
learn more of these things. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us. It has
Of
been a
course. Thanks,
pleasure
y'all.
as it always is. I can't wait to talk to you again. And submission window for KIF ought to be opening at the beginning of February. So hope to see something from you
Cool.
again.
Well, I'll take 48 hours and go make something.
Fantastic. But you know what? Make it 72. That's on me.
Okay,
It's on
thank
me.
you. I'll take a nap. Wow.
Yes,
Thanks, y'all.
exactly. Thanks,
Thank
man.
you.
Thank you for coming out. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Bye.
Have a good evening.